My name is Diane Kaplan. I'm president and CEO of Rasmussen Foundation, and I want to thank Mayor Bronson, Assembly Member Felix Rivera, and many funding partners for being a part of this announcement today. We're also joined by Assembly Members Christopher Constant and John Weddleton. Great. I think I caught the Assembly members who are here. And I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of our board member, Kathy Rasmussen, who's joined us today as well. So why are we here today? The question on everyone's mind is, have we made any progress on solving the homelessness problem in Anchorage, Alaska? And the answer is yes, and we want to share how. There have been amazing steps forward over the recent months. It's taking a long time. This is a very complex set of situations that we have in our city. There's no single prescription for any person who's experiencing homelessness. A few years back, I was sitting in my office and our chairman, Ed Rasmussen, who passed away in January, came into the office and said, "Diane, I just drove down 3rd Avenue and there are people living in tents on the street, one after the other, dozens and dozens of them. I grew up here and I cannot stand to see this. Our city has to do better. Do something about it." And the next day he came back in and he said, "So what did you do about it since I saw you yesterday?" And I said, "Well, Ed, this is not a transaction. We can't just make a grant for this. This is very complex. This is very hard. This is not a one-night stand. This is a relationship if we're going to be involved." And he came back the next day and he said, "What did you do about this yesterday?" And I said, "Well, if we want to do something, it means we're in it for the long term. We need lots of partners. We need a plan. We're going to need to do this thoughtfully. And we're going to need the city with us. This is not something Rasmussen Foundation can do alone. Many have been working on this issue for many years." And so we set about to help boost up the Anchorage Coalition on Homelessness, which had been working tirelessly as a group of providers to try and make a difference. And we started calling on partners, meeting with the municipality, finding our allies, and that's where we have gone. And we have a lot of good news to report to you today. One of the tough things about homelessness, and I remember a few years ago when a bunch of us here went to Houston to find out how they had been so successful at reducing the numbers of homeless people. The mayor at the time said to me, "Diane, here's the one thing I'm going to tell you. We have made huge changes here. We've reduced the number of homeless people in Houston by 80%, but people still see people on the street asking for money and occasionally in a tent. So they feel like nothing has happened, even though a lot has happened. Families are living in permanent supportive housing. Single adults who can work are living in humane apartments. But people don't really see that because all you hear about is the very small percentage of the population who hasn't yet found a solution. So if anything you do, be responsible, be transparent, report to the public on a regular basis so people get behind you because they know there's been progress. Earlier this year, a group of public officials, service providers, and members of the Rasmussen team agreed to take part in a facilitated plan. The municipality, led by Mayor Bronson, the Assembly, led by our Assembly Chair, Felix Rivera, got together. A facilitator was engaged by Widener Apartment Homes in Rasmussen to start a process of coming up with a plan to move people out of homelessness and into permanent housing. We needed a clear direction, and that plan now exists. The mayor signed on and his administration, the Assembly signed on, providers and private donors signed on. And because of that, now we're seeing real progress come to light. Mayor Dave Bronson, the Assembly and private funders announced $13 million has been put together, $6 million from the municipality, $7 million from private donors has been appropriated. And you're going to hear from those funders today and why, among all the many things they can invest in, this is where they're putting their money. So first, We're going to hear from people who've been involved in the coordinated plan, the facilitated plan. Mayor Bronson, Assembly Member Felix Rivera, Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness, Interim Director Meg Zalatal, and I'm going to first invite to the podium Mayor Dave Bronson.
Thank you, Diane. It certainly is a complex process after getting into this after 10 months or so. It is very difficult. It's because you're dealing with individuals who all have a desire on what they want done for themselves, and we, to a degree, have to accommodate that. So it is very complicated. Thank you for having me here. The municipality of Anchorage stands by public-private partnerships that will help our city's most valuable get the resources they need to be healthy and successful. Through the history of public-private partnerships here in the municipality, we have seen the value in what they do in creating sustainable services, building trust in our community, aligning incentives, establishing transparency and accountability, and laying out a vision. It's a commitment to work together with the goal to systematically bring compassionate care to our residents experiencing homelessness. Our strategy involves initiatives such as permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, treatment facilities, special population facilities, and a navigation center in Tudor and Elmore that will be crucial to helping these people. My administration is working with the Anchorage Assembly to move people from the streets into permanent housing and connect them to the services they need to be successful. We're using a no wrong door approach that is tailored towards an individual's needs. When you see and hear about Alaskans, both young and old, who struggle to find a safe and secure place to sleep, it compels us to work harder and to do better. As I look at all the partners gathered here and across our great city, I see not only a financial commitment, but a focus with our actions and policies to solve homelessness. I'm encouraged by our actions, and I look forward to working together with our community to make sure no one is left without shelter or without care. Thank you very much.
Before I begin my remarks, I want to thank Diane for giving me a little bit of a promotion there. I am not the chair of the Anchorage Assembly. I had that job for 2.5 years, and I am pleased to have passed that on to Susanna France, who's doing a wonderful job as the chair of the Assembly. So in July of last year, the Anchorage Assembly and Bronson administration took our first step together down the path towards what we now know as the facilitated collaborative process. This group, initially comprised of 3 members of the Assembly and 3 members of the administration, as well as philanthropic partners and the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness, was charged with developing a strategic plan to addressing housing and homelessness in the municipality of Anchorage in response to the eventual need to shut down congregate and non-congregate mass care operations. It took many months and several hundred hours of work before this group came back to the public and the Assembly with their strategic plan, known as the Mass Care Exit Strategy, which the Assembly adopted unanimously in November. Since then, the facilitated collaborative process has been hard at work building up the 5 planks that form this system, and within weeks, we will finally see the physical manifestation of that work. I've had the pleasure of joining this group since February and have seen firsthand the amazing effort and resources that have been brought to bear to make this strategy a reality. All 5 planks of this system are critically important to ensuring that come June 30th, we can provide adequate housing and services to those leaving mass care operations. I want to thank my colleagues on the Assembly for supporting these efforts to date and approving funds to move forward with several of these planks. These next 60 days or so are critical to ensuring the success of this system, a system which will go a long way towards filling many of the gaps which we've known have existed in our community for decades. Each of these planks tells a story that is often overlooked in the numbers and spreadsheets and headlines. Behind each of these planks are human beings with specific needs and wants. Behind each of these planks is an intention to help meet the needs of those who have, for one reason or another, found themselves on the streets or in our parks and trails. Behind each of these planks is a commitment that as a community we will leave no one behind, that everyone will have an opportunity to thrive and live their best lives. That's why I'm so excited to be a part of this work, because this system that we are building up is truly transformational. The Anchorage Assembly has been on this journey for years, and although prior plans we've adopted never panned out, I'm pleased that the Bronson administration came into office with plans of their own and eventually decided to join the Assembly in forming the facilitated collaborative process. Out of this difficult, sometimes tense, sometimes arduous process will come a future that will, if we commit to doing the work, finally bring back hope to those who have been without hope for so long. To close, I'd like to thank our philanthropic and business partners, as well as the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness, for being integral components of this work. We could not be successful without your willingness to not only be at the table, but to put your money and other invaluable resources on the table. Thank you. And next I want to invite Meg Zalatel, Interim Executive Director of the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness.
Hi everyone, I'm Meg Zalatel, and I want to talk with you about the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness role. We have been the boots on the ground in implementing this mass care exit strategy. And it's not just a mass care exit strategy, it is the community's plan to end homelessness. Many of you are probably familiar with the term anchored home. This is the real-time implementation of the anchored home plan. And it is exciting. It is exciting as we look at the homeless prevention response system, which the coalition is responsible for implementing, to see it expand and shift to meet the community's need. And we're not doing it alone. Our community partners have stretched and come to the table with ideas, innovations, their time, and their commitment. We recently had the opportunity to wind down 3 of the mass care locations on very short notice. And in doing so, in winding down those 3 non-congregate locations, nobody went to mass care. That is a huge win for our community. Individuals were housed, went into a housing stability program or a program of their choice. And what is absolutely so heartening in this work is as we stood up a housing stability program, knowing we had a limited 30 days to move a large number of people into housing. We're on this last week, watching the providers come together in the location, meeting with the residents there, acknowledging the hard work it takes to engage in the housing journey, and to say, we're doing this together. It doesn't matter what agency you're with, the goal is to find you housing, and it's working. And so I am really pleased that we are able to focus like this in unwinding mass care. I am really pleased that we are, one of the planks of this program is focused specifically on housing. Up to 130 units of workforce and permanent supportive housing. We have not been able to bring on that kind of capacity in a very, very long time, if ever. And you will hear me say it every time I get the chance to speak. The solution to homelessness is housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, former but still very good Chair, and Meg. Now, we're going to hear from a handful of the funders who are invested in solving homelessness. The work is moving faster and better because of them. Homelessness is no easy issue to tackle, and I'm really grateful, as we all are, to the businesses, including Native corporations and philanthropic organizations who are taking part. We're going to hear from Widener Apartment Homes, an early partner in the work, also from the Alaska Mental Health Trust Authority, Doi Unlimited, Premier Blue Cross, and Providence, Alaska. And I'd also like to acknowledge 3 of the other partners who are here present with us. Sherry Barretto, Chair of Chugach Alaska Corporation, Aaron Shutt, President of Doyon, and from Chalista Corporation, we have Russ Layton, hi Russ, and Nina Kemple with the Alaska Community Foundation. And now I'd like to introduce to you Greg Cerbano with Widener Apartment Homes.
Good afternoon, friends and invited guests. Today is an exciting day as we share the progress of the overall plan to address the exit of mass care and how the Anchorage homeless prevention and response system has been shored up through the work of countless organizations, advocates, elected officials, private philanthropy, and the homeless population we serve. On behalf of the ownership group of 303 West Fireweed, that was the former Sockeye Inn, I want to take a moment and describe the vision behind complex care, the complex care model that will be pursued at that facility. What's become apparent during the pandemic is that many people experiencing homelessness are medically fragile and they have complex needs that are not easily met at congregate shelters. And in recognition of this fact, the plan that was put forth and facilitated between the administration and the assembly was designed to move people quickly out of mass care to more suitable shelters and ultimately to housing. Over 150 people with these types of complex medical needs have been identified within the current system. And the repurposing of the former hotel at 303 West Fireweed was designed to care for persons experiencing homelessness with medical concerns and or disabilities for whom a congregate shelter increases the risks to their health. So our goal is to provide a stable location for a population that's not well served at large mass shelter setting, allowing these individuals to get connected to benefits such as Medicaid, Social Security, and other resources that will aid in their paths toward permanent housing. This facility will provide more sustainable care in 61 individual units, serving approximately 80 to 100 persons, and will address a long-standing gap within the current continuum of care system. The acquisition of the real estate is one thing, but just as important, we had to find the right provider to operate the facility. And on behalf of the ownership group and the many advocates that are committed to this work, I'd like to thank the team at Catholic Social Services and their board of directors for the trust they gave to us in agreeing to take this work on, and they're going to do a major role of operating the facility. I also want to thank the Anchorage Assembly and Mayor Bronson for your investment into the capital stack that helped buy the building for us to use as shelter for homeless and individuals with complex care needs. Your commitment of over $2 million in public dollars was matched by over $3.5 million of private and philanthropic funds. And together, along with our friends and supporters at Premier, Providence, and Rasmussen Foundation, and I see Paul here, and Preston, and Diane, thank you to you and your teams. We're making some of the biggest investments in addressing homelessness ever seen in Anchorage. Buying the building was the first step, but the next step is to identify reliable, ongoing funding to deliver these needed services for those that have much more complex medical needs. And thankfully, our elected officials have stepped up to partner with private philanthropy and approved appropriations of public funds that will help deliver these services for the first 2 years of operations. As we move forward together to provide these vital services here in Anchorage, I encourage an investment by the municipality of ongoing and dedicated funding to stand up the operations of this facility so we can meet the needs of this very vulnerable population. It is an investment that's worthy of our commitment and our support, and we're glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Williams. I'm the CEO for the Alaska Mental Health Trust. And on behalf of the Trust and our Board of Trustees, we wanted to first thank the Mayor and his leadership team, the Rasmussen family, Diane and the Rasmussen Foundation team, the Assembly, and others who have really collectively put forth the effort to get us to where we are today, to stand here and be proud of moving forward to address the needs of the homeless in our community. The trust especially appreciates the recognition that in order to get someone on a path to being stably housed, someone needs to be in a safe place where the services and supports can be wrapped around them so that they can move forward. We know that in order to meet those needs, there need to be community providers who are willing to step up. And like Greg said earlier, we want to recognize Catholic Social Services for being willing to stand up and meet the needs of the individuals that are going to be at this complex care facility. For the trust, we know our beneficiaries cannot address their behavioral health and other underlying medical needs unless they are safe and unless people come to them to meet those needs. And when those needs are met, we know that housing is possible and they can move on to being productive, contributing members of our community. The Trust is proud to be with many partners as a funder for this complex care facility. We know that this will make a positive impact on individual lives. With shelter coupled with services and supports, there will be improved health outcomes for individual community members and the Anchorage community as a whole. Thank you very much. And now I would like to introduce Tanya Kakatash from Doyan Limited.
Thank you, Steve. First, my name is Tanya Kakatosh. I'm the Senior VP of Administration for Doyan Limited. Doyan Limited is the Alaska Native Regional Corporation for Interior Alaska. We have over 20,000 shareholders. Therefore, on behalf of our shareholders, our board of directors, our senior managers, including Aaron, our president and CEO, I'd really like to thank Rasmussen Foundation, the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness, the municipality of Anchorage for inviting Doyan to be part of this very beneficial project for the Anchorage area. We have over 3,000 shareholders that live here. We recognize that complex issues require complex solutions, and not one entity on its own can do it by themselves, but with others we can all achieve something like this. And so this is a great project to be a part of, and we're pleased to be invited. We look forward to others. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to start out by saying I'm Jim Grasco. I'm with Premier Blue Cross. I oversee the Alaska market here. And I do have some prepared remarks, but I just wanted to say I've been in this market for about 8 years directly, and one of the things that strikes me about this coalition, this partnership, is it's just so Alaska. Alaskans don't wait for people to come to them with problem solutions. They basically see a problem, they own the problem, and then they solve the problem. And that's just so Alaskan. And I just think it's just such a great effort. So proud to be part of this. The crisis around homelessness is sadly something that we all see every day. And at Primero, we hear about it all the time from our members, from our community partners, and also from our customers. You don't need me to tell you that. We're all here today because we see it and we feel it in our community. We know the community is also splintered in a lot of ways, but the question for a long time has been, how do we put it back together? More specifically, how do we work across lines to partner and meet individual specific needs? This is a question that we've been trying to answer for a long time, and it's incredible that this nonprofit organizations in Alaska with this partnership have come together with us supporting it through our social impact program. At Primera, our mission is to make healthcare work better, but that doesn't mean just conforming with the normal traditional healthcare system. We understand that the overall health of the community itself is paramount. Everyone deserves a healthy place to live, and our priority is reaching and supporting and extending care services for people that need it most. And this is why we're committed to working with and through our partners in Alaska and to create a significant impact through this program. We've been in Alaska serving our members since 1952. While a lot has changed in those 70 years, what's remained the same is the community-driven spirit that I referenced earlier of working together to solve tough problems. And that's what we're seeing today with this significant commitment. We're seeing the municipality come together with organizations that believe in the solution of housing and also the very important wraparound services that go with that. We're seeing remarkable nonprofit organizations being brought together to share their expertise in this effort. We're also seeing a truly unified approach, which we believe is the best and right path forward. There's not one size fits all for getting people housed and taken care of. You need complex, tailored plans, which also means it's not something one organization can solve on their own. When we talk about complex, tailored plans, that's exactly what this partnership has brought to the table. It truly shines in both its depth and its comprehensiveness in our view, and that's the reason we're committed to being part of it. There are no simple solutions. Tough problems require new thinking to make progress, and that's exactly what this is. New thinking like this, addressing homelessness in a coordinated way, getting people stably housed in an environment that makes sense for their unique needs, and offering wraparound services to support people where they are. Everyone's in a different place, and that's when we'll start to see real change in our view. We want to thank every single organization and person involved in this partnership. This is a historic investment that we believe will pay dividends for years and years. Keeping people housed, keeping people connected to critical resources, keeping people safe and supported. This helps them have healthier lives and keeps the vibrant community of Anchorage moving forward into the future. So thank you very much. Pleased to be here.
Good afternoon. I'm Preston Simmons, Chief Executive for Providence, Alaska. Providence is honored to be a part of this collaborative private-public partnership to increase housing and services for those experiencing homelessness. Our mission is to serve the poor and vulnerable, and that includes helping increase access to safe, stable housing for Anchorage residents experiencing homelessness. We know that housing is a major indicator of a person's overall health and wellness. Lack of stable housing increases the risk of mental health disorders and vulnerability to contracting infectious diseases. Homelessness is also associated with shortened lifespan. Increasing access to stable housing for people experiencing homelessness will not only improve health outcomes, but it will also reduce healthcare costs for Alaska as a whole. Addressing homelessness in our community is about partnerships. To make a lasting impact, nonprofits, for-profits, governments, agencies, and health systems need to work together. You're seeing a model for that today in Anchorage. On behalf of Providence, Alaska, I thank the organization and leaders here today for their commitment to this critical issue. It will take all of us working together to address the challenge before us, and Providence, Alaska is honored to work with all of you in this solution. Thank you. And it's my pleasure to reintroduce Diane Kaplan, President and Chief Executive for the Rasmussen Foundation.
I'd like to give a special nod to Preston because long before Rasmussen Foundation got involved in a homelessness initiative, Providence was the #1 funder and has been for many, many, many years. Very quietly, without seeking any recognition of many of the things we take for granted, like dinner at Beans Cafe and things like that that they've been doing for years and years and years. So thank you, Preston, and your team. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Carol Gore and her team at Cook and Lit Housing for hosting us here in the beautiful renovated nave. If you didn't see the before pictures, it's too bad because you can't appreciate the after pictures as much. And I know a couple of our partners hadn't seen the rest of the building, so it sounds like Sezzi's willing to take you around afterwards. So thank you, Carol. Carol is a member and a former chair of the Anchorage Homeless Leadership Council. And we have another member of the council, Matt Schultz, who has joined us, and also the co-chair with Mayor Brunson, Sophie Minnick, the president of SERI, who's here with us. Thank you for joining us. And we also have another assembly member who's joined us, Forrest Dunbar. Thanks for being here, Forrest. I would like now to open it up for any questions. If there aren't any here, those speakers will be staying around to answer any questions individually. Any questions? Yes.
Yeah, hi, I'm Wesley Early with Alaska Public Media. I'm curious if you could sort of differentiate between complex care and like substance misuse, residential treatment. Is there like a what are both of those things?
Nick?
Thank you for the question. So substance misuse treatment will be much like it sounds. Substance misuse treatment, access to treatment is something that we know this community needs desperately, and that is why it was one of the planks in addressing the unwind to mass care. Whereas complex care are individuals experiencing homelessness who need the opportunity to rest, recuperate, while they have to go through the process of getting the things they need to be stably housed, whether that's applying for a Medicaid waiver, seeking admission into an assisted living home, awaiting a Social Security application. So it's two different trajectories, but both which provide individualized types of care.
Other questions? I have a question. Emily Vidacoons from the Anchorage Daily News. The workforce and supportive housing, it says the purchase agreement is pending. Who will be owning that facility and running that as well? Is there a plan yet for that?
Sure, I will start, and Felix may want to add, but it's my understanding until that purchase sale agreement is signed, that the ownership of that building won't be disclosed, because that's what typically happens in a real estate transaction.
Yeah, you're not gonna get much more out of me. Same thing. I keep saying any day now, so hopefully the public will know any day now.
Okay.
Owner Shaik with the Anchorage Press. As my question is, will there be stipulations on who's allowed to stay within the housing? For example, must they be substance free, or how are you going to decide who gets the initial spots?
For the workforce housing and permanent supportive housing, we're hoping to partner with Home for Good, which is a permanent supportive housing project already underway that is needing units, and they have program parameters. Those program parameters are very open, because what we want to do is stably house individuals so that they can then address whatever other needs or issues they may have. It is much easier to engage in any kind of treatment, counseling, or job search once you are stably housed and secured. Workforce housing also will be programmatic. We hope to issue, in cooperation with whoever the new owner may be, a request for information or proposals to see who may be interested in providing that program when that building closes and those units can be leased up.
I have another question. So the assembly tomorrow is scheduled to vote on more funding for the construction of the navigation center. That money, I take it is separate from this $13 million, and if that does not pass tomorrow, how will that impact this plan? Can you kind of just talk about how those pieces fit together and what the next step would be after that?
Thanks. So I'm going to come at this from an optimistic perspective. So tomorrow we do have the public hearing and vote on the on two things. The navigation center. There's a resolution that I think does a really good job laying out a variety of commitments that the municipality will be making with regard to the navigation center. And then second, we are going to be voting on an appropriation for $6.2 million. I understand that that particular appropriation and the project that's connected to it has been contentious, that folks have a lot of questions that they want answers to. So there's going to be an opportunity tonight to start getting answers to some of those questions at the listening session at the LUSAC Library from 5:30 to 7:30. Then when we do get to a vote, and I'll be honest, I honestly don't think we're going to get to a vote tomorrow, because we have like a 12-page agenda tomorrow. So likely you will see a special meeting that is added onto the calendars for sometime later this week, where we will have a very thorough presentation, answer as many of the questions that assembly members have in as detailed of a way as possible. And then I am cautiously optimistic that after we achieve those goals, that we will get to 6 votes whenever we actually have that public hearing and vote. But there are key issues that we need to address. And so that's where I stand on this. I still remain cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to move this entire system together.
So just to be clear, the $6 million that the Assembly is appropriating for this is different from the 6.2 you're voting on tomorrow?
Yeah, so I think the numbers were 6 million from the Assembly and the municipality, and then 7 million from philanthropy to get that 13. And then the 6.2, yes, is going to be, just doing the math in my head, yes, is going to be separate from the 6 million we've already appropriated.
Just a word about navigation centers. When I mentioned a visit to Houston that some of us did about 4 years ago, and we refer back to it because we learned so much. And we picked a city that we knew was that had a huge problem and had really made some progress. When we asked the people we met with, and it was everyone from the coalition to business leaders, downtown business leaders, the mayor, bankers, and so on, what is the single most important thing you did? And they said navigation center. And the reason is there needs to be a place where you can touch base with people who are receiving services, whether it's for healthcare, getting information, knowing how to reach people. So if you find a housing solution, you can get in touch with them. And we took that to heart, and therefore there's a navigation center underway downtown in the old Beans Cafe property that Whitener Properties has taken the lead of, with Alex McKay, our vice president, doing the design on that. And then also the second one planned. So we know that the services provided are crucial to be able to address each person with the solution that's right for them. Any other questions? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Nelson Godoy. I'm a chairman of Faces of Hope Community Services, a member of the Anchorage Community Police Relations Task Force. And I do have a question. In this political, social, economical administration, don't you think it is, I'm talking about the homeless on the streets, which is the law that you guys created in order to fix this dilemma? Because you see, the main thing is, I don't know if you have the knowledge about the vagrancy law, that they abolished that one because that criminalized the poor people. But you see, like the kids on the streets, if you see those kids on the streets, police can stop them and ask them what they're doing on the streets if they're doing vagrancy. But the main thing here is there is so many knowledgeable people in here, so many money, so many chairmans and people that is trying to fix this problem. But you see, if you don't create a law that not penalize them, but at least enforce them to follow, the rules, we will not fix the problems on the streets of the homeless. Because you see, the main thing here is there is a different kinds of homeless, because I understand that. And every single one of you is putting money into this thing. Don't you think it is a natural law that it can be fixed these problems for the homeless on the streets? If you emphasize, and go straight to the point and try to fix this problem, that has been going on forever, not only in Anchorage, but in the whole United States. So I do believe if you put the pieces on the table and move every single thing that we already have, because you see, hospitals, clinics, and projects, programs are already in place. Why don't we put all these things together, in order to fix the problem that is going on out there? I've been introducing one of my projects since 2011 to the city of Anchorage. They quite not understand, how the project works. But the main thing is no project is gonna work if you don't create a law.
Thank you, and I know there are others who share your view. I think what you've heard from the funders here is we believe that the solution to homelessness is housing. And that's one thing that Anchorage clearly does not have enough of, is housing. So there really is not enough, there's very little being built, and we're taking all sorts of steps to make it easier for developers to do work here in our city. But right now, forgetting everything else, there is just simply not enough housing for everybody who needs a roof over their head. So our approach has been a compassionate one and we find housing the solution, not incarceration, not blaming, not other things. It's really housing is what we're trying to do. And we believe for people who have experience behavior that others find acceptable, if they can be housed, then they're in a much better position, as Meg said, to work on the other issues that are causing them not to function well in our community. But I appreciate your point of view. I'm not familiar with your project, but I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards about it. Any other questions? Great. Well, our speakers will be around. I thank everyone for your time and attention. And we're very happy to be here and share some good news. Thank you.